me to know the facts of the character. He wants me to. There's no speaker for today. Okay. So ghar ki murgi dal barabar. Hema, you make a presentation. Okay. Then so I was roped in. Then he wants his Upperman Martins to run down and do that. Only one thing I asked. I said, make me a drink. So he made it. But as usual, everything is that goes wrong in my life is Shibu's fault. We are both reconciled to that. So the glass had so much condensation on it that it slipped out of my hand and it fell down the ground and all of it finished. So it's Shibu's fault that the glass was condensed. So that's Shibu's fault that the glass had condensation on it and it slipped out of my butterfingers anyway. So
will Shibu get his mutton stew tonight or not?
I'm thinking about it.
If there is a wait list, I am one.
Nice try, Binny. Nice try.
He tried to weave his way in. There's a wedge there.
Okay.
Okay. I think let's get started.
Let's get started.
So this is the centenary year of Satyajit Ray, and there's a lot of talk and shows and things like that going on about him. And Hema got involved in some of those, and she got really hooked onto Ray and all that he does and all that. So I thought she'll be the perfect person to discuss him here.
Yeah.
So yeah, welcome, and Hema, over to you.
So just because I was watching Ray movies back to back for over 3-4 days, Shibu thinks that I'm some sort of like a Ray, expert, which I am not. So although I did rediscover quite a few facets of Ray and his movies this time around, because I think previously when we were young on Doordarshan, Sunday afternoon is when we used to sit and watch it. So I did learn a few new things. So some of it I'm sharing with you. There's going to be I'm just going to play clips after clips for you to watch and enjoy. And at the end of it, hopefully we will have a discussion about what each of Ray movies mean to each of you. Any particular movie scene which has stayed with you, your own interpretations of the scenes that, either I have shown or the ones you have seen from your memories. All of it is welcome. So I will now go on to a slide share. So the slide share is on, right?
You're not on the thing.
Oh, it's not there? So now you can see the screen, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's not a slideshow. It's a regular one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now it's
all right.
Presentation.
So it's a presentation now. So starting off, so like Shibu said, this is the birth centenary year of Satyajit Ray, and a lot of webinars and things have been going on. So why not we also get into the fray? So he's a multi-talented, multifaceted person. I've just listed out the things that he does down there, and I'm going to read it out to you. He's a director, scriptwriter, documentary filmmaker, author, essayist, lyricist, magazine editor, illustrator, calligrapher, and music composer. As you can see, each of these things can make an independent career for a person, and this one man has been blessed with all of them. So this was actually something I had planned to put at the fag end of the talk. I was just telling Shibu that I've got an interview that I want to play. But I thought, let's just get in with it. Let's listen to what he has to say about, his craft.
At Cannes in 1956, he's been hailed as India's greatest film director and one of the finest of all directors. He steadfastly refused to go to Hollywood, preferring to live and work in his native Bengal, a small province of India long associated with the arts. He likes to work with his own dedicated team of actors and technicians, and in his own language, Bengali, an especially pure and ancient dialect spoken now by a small percentage of India's population. And yet his films are widely accessible. He uses his skills to tell his stories simply and lovingly, and the depth of feeling in his characterization arouses a basic human sympathy. His latest film is The Chess Players, which received its world premiere at the London Film Festival recently.
The Shatranj Ke Khiladi, his first Hindi movie.
With The Chess Players,
and only
Ray is reaching out towards a bigger audience. For the first time, he uses an international star, Richard Attenborough, and dialogue partly in English, partly in Hindi, the majority Indian language. It's a historical film set in the 1850s about the growth of the British Empire in India and the conflict that resulted. We start the profile of Ray with a clip from that film where the British general has his first audience with the King of Oudh.
His soldiers.
You see Amjad Khan in a totally different role, not Gabbar anymore.
This is a documentary film shot on the set of The Chess Players. It was directed by Ray's son for Calcutta TV. Ray makes films like few other directors. He not only directs the actors, he also operates the camera, writes the script, composes the music, designs the sets, and even draws the posters. This means that Ray can work with a personal and direct control over his material, rather like a writer or a painter.
Richard Attenborough.
Ray comes from a family with a strong artistic tradition. His grandfather was a musician and a painter, and the family printing house, U. Ray and Sons, was the most progressive and the largest in Bengal. His father wrote and illustrated nonsense verses for children, an Indian Edward Lear. Unfortunately, he died when Ray was very young, and the family business went into liquidation.
At 3 years of age, he lost his father.
Ray was left to be brought up by his mother, without much money, but she managed to save enough to make sure he had the best education at the Presidency College, Calcutta, where the more liberal traditions of the English school system prevailed.
We were exposed to both Western and Eastern culture at the same time. I mean, we read. I used to take boys on paper. I used to read the comics and everything. So I grew up in that kind of atmosphere, where both Western sort of influences and the normal indigenous influences worked.
Later, Ray came under the influence of a friend of the family, the great Indian writer Tagore. He went to Tagore's International University, Santiniketan, where he studied art and calligraphy. This is some of his earliest work in the early...
Here there is no audio, but the art is there to be seen. And you can see he's a highly accomplished artist. And I wanted to show you the interview because, you know, who cannot be mesmerized by that diction and that awesome baritone voice of his.
He then embarked on a career as a commercial artist for an English advertising agency in Calcutta, illustrating books and designing their covers. Film club. And then by chance he heard that Jean Renoir was to visit Calcutta.
We saw an advertisement in one of our dailies there, Statesman. Mr. Jean Renoir, the French director, would like to interview so-and-so for a film he's made. I said, how extraordinary. And he was staying in a hotel which was right next door from the advertising agency, the Great Eastern. And I said, I must go and see him. So I just walked across to the hotel and presented myself as a film buff. I mean, the word hadn't come into use at that time, but I said, I'm very interested in the cinema. I've seen your American films, but not your French films yet. He said he was a marvelous man. He said he had just come for, you know, location hunting and interviewing some actors for the film. But, well, I used to go and see him occasionally. You see, I had read the book on which my first film was based, Pate Panchali. In fact, I had illustrated a special edition of the book. And while doing it, the thought struck me that it would make an interesting film. And I told Renoir. Renoir told me, why don't you make a film if you're so interested? Why don't you give up what you're doing and go into filmmaking? I said, well, I have an idea to make this kind of a film, and I described the story. He said, do it. It sounds marvelous. This was on his first visit. Well, at that point, of course, I couldn't think of giving up a very good job. It was a difficult decision to make. But at that point, I was sent to London, to the head office of this advertising agency for higher training. And I spent 6 months here, most of the time, looking at films, really, and losing interest in advertising in the process.
How many films do you think you saw in that?
Oh, about 100. About 100.
One of the first films he saw in London was De Sica's Bicycle Thieves, the first near-realist film from Italy. It was a revelation to him. He recognized in its rough documentary style the way he wanted to make Pather Panchali, and on the boat home he wrote his script and decided to go ahead with the film.
It's really...
So that was the interview. So this is the movie we're talking about, Pather Panchali, the path-breaking first movie of Satyajit Ray's. It came out in '55. And on the panel up here, the black and white sketches, these are the sketches he made for Vibhuti Bhushan Bandyopadhyay's story. And that is how he visualized the scenes. If you remember seeing the movie, you can actually recognize these scenes in the movie. And it is, at being a black and white movie, it is almost directly translated, you know, the Durga and Apu running across the field and watching the train go by. All of these are very classic images of this movie. It just re-egged in the awards. There are some people who say Pather Panchali won the Oscar. No, it did win the BAFTA, and it got the award at Cannes, not the Palme d'Or, but another award for the best movie, picturizing the human condition. It also got the national award back home. And this is the character Apu from Pather Panchali. So what I'm going to show, so after this, once he finished Pather Panchali, he went on to make the Apu Trilogy. The second one is Aparajito, which means unbeaten or invincible. And the third one is Apur Sansar, which is Apu's world. And there made his favorite actor, Soumitra Chatterjee, made his appearance as the young man Apu. So it goes through Apu's life as a young boy, a teenager, and an adult who, goes on to make his own family. What I'm going to show you is a clip, a combination of these three movies. Pather Panchali obviously brought him into the limelight, made him famous. But when he made Aparajito, it bombed pretty badly at the box office. But now looking back, everybody agrees that probably Aparajito was like a really brilliant movie. Maybe not up to Pather Panchali, but one of the best movies, Ray's movies, it's considered to be today. I saw all three, and I have to admit that the teenage Apu, who loses his father, who wanders around the ghats of Banaras, has a this heart-searing fight between his mother back home and his ambition in Calcutta. How he's divided between his loyalty or his the affection towards his mother, which binds him here, but yet he wants to break free in Calcutta. So that shows his dichotomy, the conflict in his mind. Almost all of Ray's heroines are tragic figures, very sad. They never come to any good end, sadly. There is an exception, which I will show you right at the end. So I'll go on to show you this clip, which shows all three movies, the Apu Trilogy. This is Durga, Apu, and their mother. This picture was actually featured in a photo, feature in the Museum of Modern Arts in New York. Of, I think, 9 pictures they came out from India. This was one of them. And although Satyajit Ray is credited with taking this picture, it was probably Subrato Mitra, his cinematographer, who would have actually taken this photograph. all movies from all three scenes are there in this. This is a young teenage Apu. This is the adult guy, Samudra Chatri. And the music is Ravi Shankar. That is a young Apu taking a train to Calcutta. His mother waiting for him back home. Working at night and studying in the college during the day. As an adult, again a writer struggling in Calcutta. His new bride, Sharmila Tagore. Banaras. So yes, that was the trilogy. I don't know where you can see all these the three reconstructed movies. I just got it off YouTube, but you can search for it. The other thing about Patra Panchali is that it took 2.5 years to make. Now, Ray is no stranger when it comes to working on a shoestring budget. I mean, pretty much most of the work he does himself. But that being his first movie, he felt short of money. And that is the reason it took 2.5 years for him to make the movie. There was no money to be made. He applied to the West Bengal government. And the story goes that they granted him funds under the heading of road improvement. Because they thought it had something to do with roads in West Bengal, Patra Panchali. So like he said in his interview, we saw in that interview at the beginning, his parents are Sukumar and Suprabha Rai. And they're both very talented people in their own rights. He was father was an artist. She was a teacher. And once the father passed away at age 3, it was basically Suprabha and the grandfather who took care of him. There is a documentary in which he talks about growing up in a printing press. There was the smell of ink all around. They had very meager means, but they managed. Later on, the printing press completely shut down and they moved to a rented house. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. Also, they, as a religion, they are Brahma Samajis. After his initial schooling, he went to college in Presidency College and actually studied economics. Because like most mother, and I know this because I've done this to my son, get a degree which will give you a livelihood. So he was pushed in to learn economics. And after that, the mother did an equally clever thing. Ray wasn't very interested in going to Shantiniketan, but the mother pushed him to do it, which was good because that is where he learned all his art. His art became more polished in Shantiniketan. Then, like he very well said, he went on to advertising, this company which sent him to London. And he was not very happy there at all. But because his art was flourishing, he took a job as a book cover designer. And there are many book covers that he has designed, very artistic ones too. This is imagine this, Jawaharlal Nehru's Discovery of India. This particular cover was designed by Satyajit Ray. Now, I'm not going in any particular chronological order here. I'm just going by the movies that I have loved and enjoyed, and there are reasons why I have enjoyed them. I really like Pratidhwandi because of the actor Dhritiman Chatterjee in this movie. Now, everybody, whenever you talk about the actor most dear to Satyajit Ray, everybody knows it's Soumitra Chatterjee. Now, I personally have a little bit of a disagreement about that because I feel that Dhritima Chatterjee is a much better actor than Soumitra Chatterjee. I mean, you shouldn't be actually comparing apples and oranges. But the thing is, most of Ray's characters were these soft-spoken, almost effeminate, shy characters. And I guess Soumitra Chatterjee fitted the bill for that characterization. Although there is a movie called Ghare Baire, in which Soumitra Chatterjee plays the role of a Swadeshi rebel. You know, he's always making fiery speeches, getting people to come join the rebellion. I would have thought that Dhritima Chatterjee fit that role to a T, but again, it was Soumitra Chatterjee who did that along with Victor Banerjee. So what I would like to play for you here is one particular scene from Pratidwandi. Pratidwandi is a movie where, this is, this is Dhritima Chatterjee right here. So this was his first movie, his debut. He made his debut in a Ray movie. And in Ray's last movie also Dhritiman featured. And in between there was a gap of 20 years where the two never worked together, which I think is a big loss. On the other hand, Dhritiman worked quite a lot with Mrinal Sen. I have a theory about this. I felt that Dhritiman Chatterjee was a little bit more left of center, and so was Mrinal Sen. And everybody knows and agrees and have talked about the fact that Satyajit Ray is very apolitical. Pratidwandi was released in somewhere in the 70s, and it shows you the life of this young man who's jobless in Calcutta, and he's just trying to find meaning in his life and a livelihood. He's tramping the streets of Calcutta, trying to find where he belongs. So I'm going to just play this interview from the movie.
You are a BSc?
Yes.
When did you graduate?
I'm just going to play that again, sorry.
1966.
So it goes right at the beginning.
Would you like to? How old are you?
I'm just over 25, sir.
You are a BSc?
Yes.
When did you graduate?
1966.
And you've been idle ever since?
No, sir, I was at the medical college for 2 years.
What were you doing there?
Studying, sir.
Only for 2 years?
Yes.
What made you
I think it's pretty
give up
evident, no,
medicine?
Dhritima?
Did you suddenly lose interest in medicine?
There he is.
No, sir, I lost my father.
I see. What's your aim in life?
Look at the banality of the question.
Right now, it's to find a job, sir.
But the job you've applied for has nothing to do with medicine.
No, sir, but I also did botany for my science degree.
Do you like flowers?
Not unconditionally. Some I like, some I don't.
Does the term mitochondria suggest anything to you?
It's a botanical term, sir. Mitochondria are small, thread-like bodies in cytoplasm.
Who was the Prime Minister of England at the time of independence?
Whose independence, sir?
Our independence.
Thank you.
What would you regard as the most outstanding and significant event of the last decade?
The war in Vietnam, sir.
More significant than the landing on the moon?
I think so, sir.
Could you tell us why you think so?
Because the moon landing, you see, we weren't entirely unprepared for the moon landing. We knew it had to come sometime. We knew about the space flights, the great advances in space technology. So we knew it had to happen. I'm not saying it wasn't a remarkable achievement, but it wasn't unpredictable. The fact that they did land on the moon.
Do you think the war in Vietnam was unpredictable?
Not the war itself, but what it has revealed about the Vietnamese people, about their extraordinary power of resistance. Ordinary people, peasants, and no one knew they had it in them. And this isn't a matter of technology, it's just plain human courage. and it takes your breath away.
Are you a communist?
I don't think one has to be one in order to admire Vietnam, sir.
That doesn't answer my question. However, you may go now.
So, shall we have the discussion at the end? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
And to chat in between also. And I mean, now particular format. If you want to discuss something, you can.
No, I just wanted people's opinion about this. Shall I stop this share? Or maybe we'll continue. We'll do it at the end. I just wanted to see if you guys noticed, the interviewer, as he just pulls back, from the table. Are you a communist? Things like that. It's just Ray is a master of those kind of maneuvers. So Shatranj Ke Khiladi, I think, is probably one of the first movies of Satyajit Ray's that I have seen. And because suddenly it made, it's in Hindi and you can actually understand. And it is a hilarious movie. It is quite unlike any of the Bengali movies that he has made, let me tell you. There is Sanjeev Kumar, who's utterly brilliant actor. And then there's Saeed Jafri, he's just... And then there is Amjad Khan, who's playing Wajid Ali Shah. You saw a little clipping of that right at the beginning. There are dialogues that will make you laugh. The whole situation sometimes makes you want to cry. I think it is just a superb movie. And I watched Shatranj Ke Khiladi before I even knew who Satyajit Ray was. And even then it just blows your mind away. So let's just look at some of the clippings here. These are like large videos. So I'm just going to, stop and start whenever suitable. So the background is that Awadh, the emperor is Wajid Ali Shah. He's the last emperor of Awadh. And that is the time when the kingdom gets annexed.
अंग्रेज सरकार को जब किसी नवाब से कोई शिकायत होती, तो नवाब गाजीउद्दीन हैदर की दरियादिली से तो अंग्रेज इतने खुश हुए कि उन्हें बादशाह के खिताब से नवाजा। और यही वो ताज है जो वाजिद अली शाह ने नुमाइश में भेजा था। नवाब वाजिद अली शाह, काश तुम जानते कि अंग्रेज रेजिडेंट जनरल उट्रम तुम्हारे लिए क्या मंसूबे बना रहा है।
The whole thing is about ridiculing the emperor of Awadh. Then obviously the British cannot understand what this guy is all about. He doesn't understand. Yeah, I mean, of course he's a wastrel, but still.
Have you ever seen a pigeon that has one black and one white wing?
No, sir.
Well, now, J1 Khan, the keeper of the royal pigeons, received a kilat, the reward, I suppose, huh?
Yes, sir.
Of 2,000 rupees for producing a pigeon with one black and one white wing. I find this a very revealing document, Weston.
Revealing document.
It's an hour-by-hour account of the king's activities, dated the 24th of January. That's yesterday. Did you know that the king prayed 5 times a day?
5 is the number prescribed by the Quran, sir.
Surely all Muslims don't pray 5 times a day.
Well, not all, sir, but some do.
The king being one of them.
The king is known to be a very devout man, sir.
And afterwards amused himself by flying kite on the palace roof. That's at 4 p.m. Then the king goes to sleep for an hour, but he's up in time for the 3rd prayer at 5 p.m. Recited a new poem on the loves of the bulbul.
A bird, sir. The Persian nightingale.
Mm-hmm. At a mushaira. What's a mushaira?
A mushaira is a gathering of poets. They recite the new poems.
I see. Weston, you know the language, you know the people here. I mean, what kind of a poet is the king? Is he any good, or is it simply because he's the king that they say he's good?
I think he's rather good, sir.
You do, eh?
Yes, sir.
Do you know any of his stuff?
I know some, sir.
Well, can you recite it? I mean, do you know it by heart?
Recited, sir?
Yes, I'm not a poetry man. Many soldiers are, but I'm curious to know what it sounds like. I rather like the sound of Hindustani. Are they long, these poems?
Not the ones I know, sir.
Go on, man, out with it.
Sir. सदमा ना पहुंचे कोई मेरे जिस्म जार पर, आहिस्ता फूल डालना मेरे मजार पर, हर चंद खाक में था मगर ता फलक गया, धोखा है आसमान का मेरे गुबार पर.
Is that all?
He's speaking about himself, sir.
Well, what's he saying? It's nothing obscene, I hope.
No, sir.
Well, what is he saying?
Wound not my bleeding body, throw flowers gently on my grave. Though mingled with the earth, I rose up to the skies. People mistook my rising dust for the heavens.
Doesn't strike me as a great flight of fancy, I'm afraid.
They keep running in your head, sir. I find them quite attractive, some of them. He's also fond of dancing, sir.
Yes, so I understand God, I am told.
You're right, sir. He also composes his own operas.
Does he really have 400 concubines?
I believe that's the count, sir. Mutha wives, sir. They're temporary wives.
Temporary wives?
Yes, sir. A Mutha marriage can last for 3 days, 3 months, or 3 years. Mutha is an Arabic word.
And it means temporary?
No, sir.
No?
It means enjoyment, sir.
You can see from Richard Attenborough's face that the English weren't very clued in about that aspect of having a Mutha wife. The story goes that when Richard Attenborough came here, he actually researched this original character and he brought his own cheroots with him. He said, he told Satyajit Ray that, can I smoke these cheroots? Because that's what this guy did. And he got even a monocle. He brought all this from England when he came for the role and polished up his Scottish accent. So Ray was okay with that. If an artist contributes in any way to the creative process, he was completely all right with it. This is what Richard Attenborough had to say about this. So here is another interaction between the two rabid chess players. So their houses are crumbling around them. Awadh is getting annexed. There is a war. But these two chess players, this is all they do, to the exclusion of everything else. I think Sam is furiously texting, but I don't know.
Chup ho gayi.
I think I'll read it now. So this is Saeed Jafri.
ये लीजिए शेर.
हजूर, दुल्हन बेगम बुलाई न.
So that is, he's not going to listen to that. He's busy playing chess.
सरकार, दुल्हन बेगम बुलाई न है आपका.
क्या बात है?
अब हम ही का जाने सरकार. हजूर,
कह दो आते हैं. बिरयानी पसंद आई? क्या यही पूछने के लिए बुला रही हैं?
बेटिया, सरकार कहीं कि हम आए रहे हैं. कब आएंगे? अब ये तो बताएं नहीं कि कब आ रहे हैं.
अगली सुबह.
So that's what I wished to show. The wife keeps calling him, but he never turns up. Meanwhile, the character Saeed Jaffri's character, his wife is having a raging affair with his nephew or somebody. He's completely unaware of that. At least this wife is waiting for the husband, you know. So anybody who's extremely involved in playing chess to the exclusion of everything else, just please be aware. Now, this is another one of Ray's famous works, Charulata. It was based on Rabindranath Tagore's short story called Hema Nair, which is Broken Nest. It's a very evocative story. It's about this very busy publisher with a very beautiful and lonely wife at home, and and an artistic younger brother or cousin brother of his comes visiting, and the young man forms a very deep intellectual bond with the sister-in-law, and the sister-in-law in her loneliness leans more and more on this young man. And at some point he realizes that this is not a very good thing, so he just ups and leaves, leaving a very shattered Charulata behind and a broken nest. Soumitra Chatterjee is brilliant in this movie. These kind of roles were made for him. And Madhavi Mukherjee, the brilliant Madhavi Mukherjee. So I'll just show this one clipping from this movie. The whole movie is very slow. It is just full of slow movements and silences. And I apologize for the poor audio quality. He's singing a Rabindra Sangeet. Now this is very difficult cinematography at that time. You have to remember the cameras were huge and bulky.
ঠাকুরপো ও দিগ্গজ বাবু দিতে
So Charulata was quite it was commercially also a success, and that established both Madhavi Mukherjee and Soumitra Chatterjee as one of the bankable stars in Bengali cinema. Now, this is Agantuk is actually Ray's last movie. Utpal Dutt was also featured very prominently in Ray's works, and he's a phenomenal actor, Utpal Dutt. This movie, like I said earlier, after Pratidwandi, Dhritiman Chatterjee again came into this movie. And in fact, most of Ray's movie doesn't have a villain. They don't have a villain. They do have like characters who are a little negative. And after Pratidwandi, the two movies that Dhritiman Chatterjee did for Satyajit Ray, both the characters he played were negative roles. One was, the brother of the main character in Ganashatru, who's a crooked municipal councillor, and in Agantuk, who's a very tough-talking lawyer, who's neighbor of the main character. He's a lawyer friend of theirs. And the story is Utpal Dutt is a long-lost uncle who comes back to this little family, but they are not sure whether he is indeed the long-lost uncle or some interloper, some imposter who has come to claim a lot of money that is going to come through in a will. So the whole movie is about them struggling to figure out whether he is indeed this grand uncle. At the same time, they form bonds. It's a wife, a husband, and a small child, and they form bonds with him. the child understandably has there's no suspicion in him. So he forms the bonds more easily. The woman, she does because this is her great uncle. And eventually the husband also comes around. So I couldn't find a clipping, but I will show you this. I'll just take the cursor to the end of the movie, to the scene that I want to show you. The actress in this is Mamata Shankar. Mamata Shankar, who's the famous Uday Shankar's daughter. So obviously she's also a very accomplished dancer. I wanted to show you this clipping because I said right at the beginning that Satyajit Ray heroines are all very unhappy lot. Nothing good comes to them in their lives. Their lives are full of tragedies. But here is a beautiful scene. You have Mamata Shankar, and this is a scene which I can very well identify with. It's almost the last scene. There is a tribal dance going on. So this uncle, he's a very well-traveled man. He's traveled all over the world. So now he has gone and he's staying with the Santal tribes in Bengal, and that's where they go to visit him. So he has arranged for a dance performance by these Adivasis, and he tells his niece and family, stay on and watch the dance. So they stay to watch the dance. Now, as the dance progresses, it's a very tribal percussion beat, and she starts tapping along. I'm sure people who are, who have a little bit of like a chanchal pair, like I have, when you hear good music, it's very difficult for you to sit still. You want to like join the, you want to get into it and start dancing. So this is a scene which really, I identified with. And here, finally, you actually see a happy Satyajit Ray heroine. So for that one reason alone, it's worthwhile showing. Oh my God, I don't believe this. I saw it just this afternoon. Unbelievable.
And we lost the chance.
Yeah, and I saw this on some weird, I think I went and saw it on Eros or something, and I actually saw it without subtitles. So I struggled to see, like go through. Is this okay? Okay. I will find that clipping for you because there are other poor shots of that which I can probably find. I was very surprised to see that clipping because it actually had subtitles. And I was thinking, my God, why did I struggle just trying to figure out the Bengali? But now it's gone. So the last movie that I wanted to talk about is Devi. Devi forms a very, Devi or Durga, Shakti form is a very huge, presence in the Bengali culture. And this movie he made with Charulata Tagore. This was made after Apur Sansar, a very young Charulata Tagore. Story about a young bride who comes into the Zamindar's family, and the father-in-law somehow thinks that she's a goddess. And I can't quite blame him because, the eyes and the face and the features, she does look like those murtis in Durga Puja. And he starts praying to her. So from being a young, innocent bride, she's been made a goddess. And all of those restrictions and trappings that come along with being made divinity. She just wants to be a normal wife and a young woman, but no, she's been made a goddess. It is also a statement on the way patriarchy works, Oh, I care for you, so don't go out after dark. Oh, I care for you, so let me drop you and pick you, and keep you closeted because I care for you. So that sometimes is, even if it is out of a lot of nurturing and caring and protecting, it works against what the woman actually wants. I also I have not brought a clipping for this, but wanted to show you this illustration, which is one of Ray's own illustrations, and that is the film poster that he designed. Now, this is a little bit of a departure from Ray because it is on the same subject of Devi. There was a movie called Antar Mahal. I think Shibu probably remembers it. We saw it together in theater. I just wanted to, because I was on the subject of Devi, I just wanted to show this to you. It's not a Ray movie. It is a Rituparno Ghosh movie. And The story is that the Zamindar wanted to please the Britishers who were obviously breathing down his neck, like how it happened with Wajid Ali Shah. And in order to please the English, the resident over there, he decided to make the Durga Murti that year for the Durga Puja of that year with Queen Victoria's face on Durga. And he hires a sculptor to do it. It's played by Abhishek Bachchan. Can you see the remarkable similarity of this woman with, this is not Sharmila Tagore, it's her daughter, Soha Ali Khan. And the sculptor sees this and completely falls in love with the face. And when the Murti is made and unveiled, it is not Queen Victoria, but Soha Ali Khan's face. This is a sculpture that is unveiled at the end of the movie. And I thought this is remarkable, the the similarity between Sharmila Tagore and Soha Ali Khan's face, and mother and daughter, but still. So that is what it was.
Wow.
Wow, Hema. So yeah, so obviously you're the person to fall back on. See, can't blame me.
You better fix her a good drink, huh?
Yeah, I know, right? While we have the discussion, I'm going to just try my luck at finding you the video. But anyway, we can continue with the discussion.
No, it's quite remarkable to see what Satyajit Ray has achieved in Bengali culture, and especially the kind of close relationship with Tagore. I mean, with Tagore and Tagore stories. At the moment, I'm listening to some of Tagore's short stories in Hindi, and it's really beautiful how he captures the pathos of life and characters, but all around fairly privileged people. I mean, I see a similarity in what Satyajit Ray. You rightly said, Hema, Soumitra Chatterjee, typifies the Bhadralok, as they say, and so much of Tagore's stories also are about Bhadraloks, and how they lead their lives.
Actually, I found the clipping. Can we just, before somebody else takes it off, can I just share it? Yeah. Okay. I'll just share it again. Okay. This is the young boy who takes to his great-grand-uncle without any effort. That's Mamata Shankar. How beautiful is she? Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. This is me just playing. So since Mamata Shankar, even in the movie, is supposed to be a dancer, she's just watching the steps. And for a dancer, watching the steps is enough. I mean, she's a dancer, but even in the movie, she's a dancer. That's what the uncle says about her. So you'll see how seamlessly she just goes in.
কেমন লাগছে দাদু?
ভালো।
join them. Jao, jao.
The boy is wonderstruck looking at his mother.
দেখেছেন আপনার ভাগ্নির কাণ্ড?
What he says is, do you see your niece?
ও আমার ভাগ্নি কিনা সেই বিষয়ে আমার মনে সন্দেহ
He
ছিল।
says, now I'm certain that she's my niece.
এখন আর নেই।
So happy. Satyajit Ray is one happy hero. Yeah, so that was to stop. All right then. Got that also in.
Suresh, you were saying, yeah.
No, I
Sorry,
think
Suresh, I
you know,
interrupted
firstly compliments Hema for researching Ray so thoroughly. I think it's really
I just watched his
fascinating.
movies.
No, but really, you know, I think when you see it with, you know, a pair of fresh eyes, it looks quite, it seems quite different because you have your own interpretation. No, it's not, you're not following any guided text for it. But it's remarkable that after Ray, you know, I can't count on too many directors and producers who could quite produce that class of work in India, and that's probably begs the question why. Why is it that we have not been able to? Is it lack of exposure? Is it opportunity? Is it sheer talent not being there, or motivation,
You mean other
inspiration
movie
not being there?
makers?
But it's telling that we don't have anybody, you know, after that of that stature.
Oh, actually, yeah. I mean, see, you see the multifaceted personality. I think that has got that says something. Because here he was a visual artist. You know, he would actually draw and paint. I mean, there are so many other brilliant movie makers also. But I guess internationally, nobody. Now, of course, it's coming out. I think it is because of the fact that he was a musician and an artist. And then he learned the craft of filmmaking. So he brought all of that into it.
Yeah, he was a true auteur. It was his film.
Yeah.
Everything was his.
Auteur, you know, where everything is his. All the aspects of filmmaking. And Sam, which was the Premchand short story?
Shatranj Ke Khiladi actually is based on a Premchand story.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Now, I did want to offer my comments on a few things that you said. I mean, I think by and large, you're totally right. Many of Ray's heroines don't land up, you know, in a very happy situation. But I think there are two that I remember. Mahanagar is a classic story of the changing dynamics when women start entering the workforce. And Madhavi Mukherjee there becomes a door-to-door salesperson, and the change in the family dynamic. There, it doesn't quite end negatively for her.
Yeah, I mean, the circumstance.
And similarly, Nayak is one where Charulata plays a reporter with a very independent streak who actually manages to change Uttam Kumar, you know, thinking about his own career and so on.
I haven't seen that movie, but the other thing I've noticed about Ray's women is Ray always wants his women. I mean, of course, he was very progressive, much more, quite progressive for that age. But always you know, like in this case, Mamta wanted to dance, and he says, go and dance. The husband says, go and dance. It's supporting. But always his women need that push. Right at the beginning of the movie, there is a scene where he says, I don't want this uncle to come. We don't know who he is. He might steal off my antiques and run away. You know, send a telegram that he can't come. So Mamta, she's like not happy about that. She says, maybe he is my uncle. I can't send a telegram to him saying we are away for 2 weeks and push him away. What if he is my uncle? He said, let him come. I will check it out. And if he seems to be imposter, I will kick him out with my own with my own broom. I'll, you know, like push him out of the house. So the husband says, bravo, like as in, you know, approval for her independence. Yet another scene in Mahanagar when Madhavi Mukherjee is upset with her boss.
Necessity is what drives her to go.
Also, when the boss treats the Anglo-Indian girl poorly, Madhavi throws a job in his face and walks off, and that there also the husband supports. So I always wonder what would Ray have done if the husband didn't support, but we have not addressed that.
Yeah, no, the second point which I think you made, I really totally agree, is that compared to Mrinal Sen, Ray is very bourgeois, according to people like Mrinal Sen and others.
I
that
think
he
that's
always
why
adopts
Dhrutima
a very
never got
middle
along
class
with him.
morality of things, and is. But I would not say he's not political. He's gently political. He plays more of a documentarian rather than actually an activist driving for certain things. And a classic. But I think there is a stretch of 3 movies that he made in the 70s, which includes Pratidwandi, seems the salesman, so Sima Baddha, and then Jana Aranya. And Jana Aranya is very dark. It's very dark. It's actually almost saying that business people often are pimps. I mean, that's how far it gets. He calls the middleman as the name of the movie. It's actually, a person is a broker. And the word dalal keeps coming up. And he really starts getting downhill into satisfying the customer's need for providing them with women. I mean, this is really a very dark film. And I wouldn't say he's not political, but I think he's very much a gentle politics compared to, let's say,
more polished
Sen, where, Sen made a movie called Interview around the same time that Pratidwandi was made. The solution in Pratidwandi was for the hero to go to the villages at the end. Whereas in Interview, it starts with actually a riot, throwing of stones and so on. So it's a very different approach to social change.
Yeah, I like Mrinal Sen has made movies like Padantik, which is like out and out political, is like, right. Yeah. The other thing I didn't mention in this whole talk is, because I haven't really watched all that many of his movies, are the Feluda series. So the Feluda is a detective that he himself has created and written so many stories about, very popular ones. So movies like Sonar Khela and, are all with Feluda as the main character. And also he wrote Professor Shankhu. He never made any movies out of it, but those stories are being serialized on TV these days.
Right.
Dave, anything you want to add about Feluda? You have seen Sonar Khela?
Yeah, I've seen Sonar Khela. And just a few random thoughts. One was that besides Shatranj Ke Khiladi, his second Hindi film, Sadgati, was also a Premchand short story.
Yeah.
If you remember. And then one of his short
I'm sorry, Sadgati is the other Hindi. After I said that about Shatranj Ke Khiladi, I remembered Sadgati is a beautiful Hindi movie with Om Puri, Shabana Azmi, about the poor situation of Dalits. It was a TV movie actually. It didn't get much of a theater release.
So he chose Premchand again, and apparently one of his short stories was used for the film E.T. Inspired his film E.T. He was discussing the possibility of making a science fiction film in Hollywood, but somehow it didn't work out. But many people believe that the film E.T. was based by Steven Spielberg, was based on a short story written by Ray himself. So,
Dave, I recently saw a version of that on one of the streaming networks, and if it has Saurabh Shukla in it, I think that's the one you're talking about. I think it's based on that story that Ray had created, I think.
Right. I have not seen that, but yeah, I do remember reading this in Andrew Robinson's biography of Ray. And but he was such a multifaceted personality that I think one must keep dipping into him, there's so many aspects of his personality. I was trying to remember one or two more interesting points regarding Ray, but they're not coming to mind.
Sandesh is the magazine he created for kids.
Right, Sandesh, yes.
Sandesh. It was a double-edged word because Sandesh was a message and Sandesh was a sweet as well.
Right. Actually,
the other thing I wanted to mention is about this autobiographical, this whole brother-in-law, and sister-in-law, they're forming a very close bond. It's very well shown in this movie. Kadambari, there is a movie. There's a movie called Kadambari, a recent release with Konkona Sen Sharma playing Kadambari. And what's that? Parambrata Chatterjee, the guy who played the young cop in Kahani movie. He's the one who's playing the young Rabindranath Tagore. So in the middle of all these ramblings and looking around YouTube for Ray movies, I came across Kadambari and I saw that as well. It's a good movie with some really good songs also in it. So that shows how she's devastated after Rabindranath. So it's a true story, basically. You know, they were very close because she was brought into the home. Rabindranath Tagore's home was called the Thakur Bari, the whole big joint family mansion. And she was brought into this house as a child bride. Rabindranath Tagore's older brother, Jyotirindranath Tagore's wife. So as she was a young girl and this the younger brother was also there, they were playmates. So they grew up playing together, and that's how she was so attached to him. He used to show the first draft of all poems to her. She used to encourage it, edit it. She was also very well read. And but she was plagued by depression and loneliness because her husband was never there and all of that. So the story is how she, you know, kills herself because of loneliness. Yeah. So about Pratidwandi, what I wanted to stop there and ask people was, what did did you all agree with the whole Vietnam versus moon landing thing? Because when the interviewer asked him, isn't it moon landing? I was thinking, yeah, of course it's moon landing. Why wouldn't he say moon landing in the 70s, you know? And then when he explains about Vietnam War, I was completely sold on that, you know? So I would have 100% given him the job. But obviously, the other guy didn't agree.
One of Ray's most famous dialogues. And, you know, it also shows the discomfort of the extreme right with Ray, you know, that they feel he was a closet leftist, you know, because he didn't, you know, he put such dialogues in his films also.
Yeah. And
So
the way the interviewer moves back, are you a communist?
Yeah. That's it, precisely, you know. So
it really made me wonder if it's like almost like a real interview, you know, and
yes.
whether actual real interviews are like that, or
really?
do they ask such questions?
What you call the boxwala culture of Calcutta, you know.
And but I think that actually shows that Ray was not, and I actually agree with what the other Sam said about what's it? Yeah, sorry. What the other Sam said about not being political. I think Ray was very political, you know, throughout all of his statements is all continuously about, because, you know, like Charulata doesn't seem political at all, but it was a completely political movie.
Why?
You know?
Charulata is not political. It's about this woman getting completely sidetracked.
No. It's a complete, so, you know, the husband represents the elitist, you know, modern kind of person, and the brother-in-law represents the nationalist, and, you know, it is the tug of war, and it is a discovery of India.
Are you talking of Ghare Baire?
No, Charulata itself, you know.
Charulata, he's not political. He's a dreamy poet.
No, Charulata, the Charu character, represents the innocent observer, you know. So as India, so I think Satyajit Ray is constantly struggling between, as a middle-class person, how he observes what is happening in India. He's struggling as a neutral observer. He's a neutral observer, and he's trying to make sense, you know. Should I side with all these Western, you know, the kind of idealistic things? Should I side with the nationalists? Should I side with the communists? So he's observing this, but he's trying to be as neutral as he can. And I think towards the end of life, or towards the end, he becomes very disillusioned, you know. So, and I think that tribal scene, which is the last scene, kind of tells that, oh, he's kind of wistfully romanticizing about a tribal India, you know. Maybe that is our true character, where Indian women are free, you know, are not fettered. So he was a very political character, you know. I think he was very political.
I agree with you there, but very gentle. He doesn't hit you on the head with it. That's the thing.
Yeah. No, but he does it very subtly. And, you know, and one of that Charulata swing scene, if you observe it very carefully, just look at her face. That's the most beauty. Yeah. She starts in one way, she finishes in one way. Yeah, she swings about. So
that's what I wanted to show. Really,
scene, you know,
it's a very brilliant
many times. It is a marvelous.
And the guy with the feather in his hand, you know, dreamy poet. He's like,
it's an amazing scene. You know,
it's a beautiful
that whole scene. There's a Scottish connection to that song. It is believed that it is a Robert Burns song.
I've heard of that
tune, you know, or I don't know, the song is.
Rabindranath Tagore was a house guest with a Scottish family for a while, and he heard these Scottish ballads, and then he composed Bengali songs based on that. I've heard that.
So I don't know how many of you know Auld Lang Syne is actually the basis of Purane She Diner Kotha. That song, Purano She Diner Kotha, is actually Auld Lang Syne. He used, Rabindranath Tagore used that tune completely.
Yes.
But I do think that there is a certain middle class not wanting to rock the boat too much, going back to sort of this Bhadralok sensibility is very much throughout his films, where he's very political, but he doesn't want you to be revolutionary that easily.
Yes.
And I think the other thing that Sam, you talked about, comes out in Ghore Baire, where he clearly wants the independence movement, but he doesn't buy into the nationalism that is associated with that, you know. And I think that tension that Tagore also wrestled with.
Exactly. Tagore and the whole Tagore versus Mahatma Gandhi way of looking at it. Yeah, that is very clearly seen. Tagore is Victor Banerjee and Satyajit Chatterjee is Mahatma Gandhi.
Yeah.
But of course, in a more violent way.
And in that independence, that question he asked about who was at the time, and he asked the question rhetorically, whose independence are you talking about? So who actually became independent? So it it's so even more than the Vietnam, it is that question. I think that is what he's struggling in all his movies, about that.
And the way he interlinks his fingers, he's not jumping up with the correct answer. Here is a man who's actually thinking about his responses. And I also wanted to note that gentleman who says, "Are you a communist?" is most like a Tambram, Suresh. He was a Tambram, judging by his accent.
It could have very well been a closet Mallu as well. Huh?
No. He sounds very Tambram. Let's get parochial
But for all of this, it may very well be that he was just an observer. His whole job or interest was in observing and projecting what he sees onto the screen. Maybe that was his whole joy and thing. So even small actions, he brings out so naturally and effortlessly. So it's just his keen observation, both of human nature as well as human actions. So that may be all that he's trying to do. Maybe we are reading too much into.
In Agantuk, there is a brilliant scene. If you guys can find a version with subtitles, it's the living room. And the lawyer that I was talking about, played by Dhritiman Chatterjee, is, interrogating this old man. And the wordplay and the dialogues, it's just 4 people in a room. I mean, how can you be so captivated by just 4 people sitting in a room? I don't know, but that's how it was, You should see that. It's a brilliant scene. All dialogues and nothing else.
Mudraman sir.
Shibu.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you know that interview fascinated me actually.
I thought so. I thought you'd like the interview. Would you have given?
In
the
many
job?
ways.
Sir, I want to know. Would you have given the job?
I would have given him the job. I'll tell you why. You see, most people would have answered that landing on the moon is the historic thing that happened in the last 10 years. Both are human endeavors. Landing on the moon is a huge human endeavor. Vietnam War and the resistance put up by the Vietnamese is a human endeavor, but Satyajit Ray puts this kind of human endeavor above a scientific human endeavor. I think it shows that man. I would have given him the job because that is the kind of people who actually make a difference. It is a remarkable interview actually. In many ways, the body language of many of these fellows who are interviewing him was also great, including that leaning back or, including the questions that they asked. A remarkable interview. And the way he answered is also absolutely remarkable.
So there is another theory that goes around that one of the Dhritiman Chatterjee is way too cool for Satyajit Ray. There can be only one convent-educated, polished English guy on the set. So that's why he went with, Soumitra Chatterjee.
Manu, you have anything?
Muted.
No, I have unmuted myself. So we are far from being authorities on Satyajit Ray. We have actually watched very few movies, but one thing we can tell you, we are inspired to watch now. I've in fact made notes. So I just love the interview scene too.
Wasn't
I
it beautiful?
Yeah, it was beautiful. Whether I would have given him a job or not depends on whether I am a good interviewer or not. I think I'm not. But one thing I observed was when a person is very original, when a person is not conforming, when a person is not looking at context, he's so original that he forgets that it's the interview part is secondary. The question is so important to him that it makes him think. So for a moment, he forgets whether he wants a job or not, and he answers so sincerely and honestly. When a person is that way, people ask him if he is a communist. I don't know why. So I love that. So communist is probably because of Vietnam and all that. That's fine. But this thing of excessive originality, if I may so put it, does inspire that question for some reason. I love the interview
Manu,
scene.
one thing that's important is that's also the slow emerging of the Naxal movement in Calcutta. So there was a huge concern at that time of how much of an Naxalite influence was being had on students, especially graduates from colleges at that time. So
okay.
Yeah, because the other movie, Padantik, which is not Rise, it is Mrinal Sen's. The whole movie, he's holed up in a apartment, hiding from the law enforcers because, he belongs to this rebellious movement.
I have something to add. Hi. I think I'm a teacher, so we get to teach class 12, one of the short stories by Satyajit Ray. That's called Fritz. Fritz. Okay, and I think he's a master at creating situational horror. I think I would like to add that with just two characters and their journey back into a remote fortress in Rajasthan, and through sheer characterization, he brings out such horror and the open-ended narration, the narrative or the ending of the story makes it so scary. It's not like those jump scares, and you would be surprised how students love the story. And they come up with different possibilities because of the open-ended narration. They need conclusion, they need closure, they need answers for their questions. And I think what adds to the horror, the element of horror is the innumerable possibilities. This is about a friend, not knowing, and just two characters, two friends. And one is an emotional, sentimental guy. The other one is a practical guy. And they're initially we feel that they're like parallel lines, but at some point towards the end they converge. And then this. I don't know whether these horror movies like Annabelle and all are inspired by this. I often wonder because it's just the story of a doll named Fritz, a German doll, and that German touch adds some more mystery to it. It's brilliant.
You should, if you could manage it, can you please share it with us, because we could put it on the lit group and we'd like to read it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
It's part of the ISC collection of short stories, and
if you have a PDF for me, we can share it.
Definitely. Yeah. So I thought I should add that because he's a master at creating situations.
Yes, he's such a storyteller.
None of those jump scares, but it gradually grows, and you start wondering. And as I said, the ending, that's what is so scary, because the innumerable possibilities, you should see what all they come up with, the possibilities. Children. It's amazing.
And the thing of him being a writer and a director and a lyricist and so many things is so mesmerizing. I don't know. I mean, that's once the sheer potential of, the talent is so much that it kind of breaks the dam of form. There's a kind of synesthesia at that level, they just transit from one to the other. He wants to create a movie and he ends up sketching something. He wants to sketch something, he ends up making a tune. So yes, that has not come after that. I have not seen talent like that later on. I think if anything, nowadays singers build their bodies and try to be actors too.
Manu, I have to add one thing since you mentioned it. Kishore Kumar came close.
Yeah.
Because he actually did that with Doodh Gagan Ki Chhaav Mein, which was inspired by Pather Panchali.
That's another genius. Oh, he's hats off. No, I'm saying compared to today. He
actually talked to Ray before making Doodh Gagan Ki Chhaav Mein because he was so inspired by Pather Panchali.
Okay.
I remember the grandmother in Pather Panchali.
Yes.
Oh my God, she's so realistic. Again, there is the scene where the father.
You don't even feel like she's an actor. She's
yeah,
acting.
she's not, I mean, she's not aware of the camera, definitely not. And the scene where the father's told about the daughter's death, and oh my God, the way he staggers, I think that was so poignant, very, very. And there are I think for about 2 minutes or so, it's just the rain.
Actually, I have not seen Patra Panchali for some time now, but I do remember the scene from Aparajito where this boy, young boy with his little thela, he goes to Calcutta. But before he goes, his mother keeps telling him, don't go now. Why don't you go after one more day, stay one more day here. But he's like, no, I have to study. I have to go back to Calcutta and do this. And the mother is all alone at home, because by then the dad has also died. And then he goes all the way to the train station. I think one of those scenes I had shown in that clipping. He walks to the train station, crosses across the barricade. And then you see him waiting at the station and the train is coming. And then the next scene is he's gotten back home and his mother is so happy to see him. What happened? So he says, I missed the train. So the mother's like, oh my God, what are you going to do now? No, it's okay, I'll go tomorrow. So he gets one more day at home with his mother, who was so badly wanting his company, So heartbreaking. Aparajito is like, I think much worse for me, I felt, than either Patra Panchali or Apu.
Okay, guys, I think we can go on discussing this endlessly. But it's been a great evening. Thank you, everybody. And I think we should all say good night.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Otherwise, we may have.
And of course, he wants his muttons too.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye, guys.
Lovely discussion.
Bye.
By the way, Sam, Hari, you could do one session someday. You've got a lot of interesting thoughts. So
I think Hema has shown how much care she's put into it, and I have to make sure I have to do at least that much. And I have sent it emails.
You do that and let us know when you would like to.
Sure.
Okay. Sure. Bye. Bye. Good night.
Good night.